Hello and welcome to Machine Embroider Your Life from American Quilters Society and Eversewn. This is part 2 of our Tablerunner project. If you want to see the video for part 1 or get the written directions, we've got the link down in the description. Let's get started. To finish the project, we're going to need a few supplies. We've got batting and backing that's going to be larger than our finished piece, our center panel that we made in part 1, the borders that we cut out in part 1, binding with enough of it to go around my entire piece when it's done, a marking tool, a walking foot, some clips, and of course our craft spray baste. We're going to be quilting our Tablerunner as we go, and that means we need to start by getting our base ready. I've got my backing laid out with my batting over it, and I've got my craft spray baste. Whenever you use craft spray baste at home, be sure to use it in a well-ventilated area away from your machine. So I'm going to spray my batting, and I like to do about half at a time. And then I pull up the other half, do the same thing on that side. Then I like to flip it over and smooth it out from the fabric side, just to make sure I don't have any wrinkles. With that all set and the adhesive dry, now I'm taking my center panel and I'm laying it out over the top of the batting, and I'm going to spray baste it just like I did the backing. I've got it perfectly centered in my batting area. I just needed to hold its spot for while we quilt. Now I'm ready to take one of my long border pieces and I'm going to lay it right sides together with that center panel. I've got it cut so I have just a little excess to either end, and I like to do that just to account for any shifting as it starts to quilt. There shouldn't be much, but I'd rather have a little extra than not enough. And once I've got that set, I can bring it over to the machine and we're going to sew. I have my walking foot installed on the machine. It's really handy to quilt with a walking foot because it moves both layers evenly with the feed dogs on bottom. My foot has a 1/4 inch mark, but if yours doesn't, you can mark that 1/4 inch seam allowance if you want, or plan for whatever size seam allowance works well with your walking foot. So I've got it all lined up under the needle, and I'm going to be sewing a seam at the edge of the border where it meets that center panel. Now that I've sewn to the end, I can take it out and trim the thread. With that seam sewn, I'm going to press it, and I'm going to press it towards the borders. So I'm just coming in and making sure that seam is all set and that my borders go over. We're going to repeat that process on all 4 sides to complete the borders. I wanted to show you on the short side how I line up my border to the center panel, not the outside borders, because we have that excess from earlier. And so we don't really have to trim any of that away thanks to this method. But to get a nice straight line, I do line it up to that center panel, and then I go ahead and sew it. Before we move on to the next step, I'm going to baste the edge of my quilt. To do this, I've increased the stitch length on my machine to the maximum 5 millimeters, and I'm going to use an 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch seam allowance all around. Now we're going to trim the Tablerunner. I like to measure from the seams, and it just gives me a nice straight line as I cut. So as I've measured it, I'm going to bring in my rotary cutter and trim. And then I just turn and keep taking it one side at a time until the entire table runner is trimmed. I get to corners like this, I measure against that already cut side, line it up against the seam, and that's how I get squared edges. For the final step, we're going to add binding. I like to use wonder clips or little craft clips. I think it's really handy for keeping the binding in place as I sew. You can make any size table runner you want. You could even make placemats. Just adjust the sizes to whatever suits your preferences. And stick around to hear more about the Eversewn Sparrow X. A special thanks to our sponsor, Eversewn. I'm having so much fun making projects with my Eversewn Sparrow X. If you'd like to get to know the machine a little better, you can download the Eversewn Pro app right now. You can find it in the App Store or Google Play Store. And to learn more about the machine, check out the link in the description below for a walkthrough video. Thanks for watching.